let's dive right in. I would like to start, if you guys want to give us a little bit of a plug for your portfolios. Josh, we're going to ask you to go last because you're going to dive right into the tech side of this.
Okay.
But if you guys want to tell us a little bit about what Prologis and Kilroy and Equity, what are you guys working on these days? What's getting you fired up about getting out of bed in the morning?
So for those that are not familiar, Prologis is the largest owner and developer of industrial real estate globally. We've got 700 million square feet across 19 countries, which translates to 3,300 buildings and about 5,000 customers. So quite a broad reach. All the major players that you can imagine in the supply chain are our customers. And in fact, we just did a study and about 1.7% of global GDP flows through our buildings. So a lot of the stuff you guys are wearing today came through one of our buildings at one point. So definitely a big sandbox to play in. So my role, I'm the innovation lead. I'm really focused on sourcing and implementing new technologies across our portfolio. And what that really comes down to, the goals are really to drive an improved customer experience in our buildings, to drive new revenues and services for our customers, and of course to improve the internal kind of efficiencies. So the types of different areas that we're looking at, number one, of course, is CREtech, everything we're talking about today. How can we use technology to solve Prologis' challenges, whether it's leasing operations or building management, or improving the tenant experience. Number two is the digital building. For us, that means how do we digitize our assets and leverage data in new ways. So we're looking at industrial Internet of Things, asset tracking, drones, using AI and analytics to drive better decisions around capital deployment. And then finally, supply chain technology. Spend a lot of time thinking about how can we solve our customers' problems, whether that's installing robotics and automation in our warehouses, whether that's plugging into last mile delivery services, whether that's connecting our warehouses to the telematics devices that are in the trucks that are showing up. So the goals of my group, drive innovation through strategic partnerships, through incubating business models in-house, and then through investment. So we can dive in a lot deeper to some of the specific areas, but really excited to share more.
Cool.
Ready to go now?
Yeah, please.
Does this work? Can you guys hear me?
Are we going? I think we got it.
Does that work? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me in the back?
Yes, okay.
That's what I like to hear.
So Gilroy Realty, we've got 24 million square feet of existing product and development opportunities in 4 West Coast markets: Seattle, the Bay Area, Los Angeles, and San Diego. If you take that 24 million, about half of that is here in the Bay Area, and about half of that is existing product. We've got about 18 buildings throughout the Bay Area. We really focus on trying to deliver innovative product to our tenants and to our customers. One of the big things we've got going right now, and I'll keep this brief, but we've got 2 big developments I want to talk about just briefly. We're big believers in life science, and so we just acquired a huge piece of land in Oyster Point. We're going to deliver about 3 million square feet of life science space starting at the end of this year. We're going to phase it in 4 phases. That's a 2% vacant market in Oyster Point. We think there's a lot of room for growth there. So we're really excited about that. And as the Central Soma plan gets adopted here in the city, we are going to be bringing out the Flower Mart, which is about 2.5 million square feet of creative office, experiential retail. We're going to have a big European-style market hall. It's going to be an incredible project, and we're really, really excited to get going on that. And that's pretty much our focus right now.
Cool. Ryan?
Can you hear me? Good? Good. And the microphone.
Pass it on down.
I'm not going to waste time here.
Yeah.
Hello?
You're on?
Yeah, okay. Ryan Salvas, Equity, which we are, if you've, I guess, followed the news as of yesterday, we're EQ office now. So big shift in our brand, and a 42-year company of equity office. We've spent a lot of time and effort changing our focus within the company and moving more toward a customer-centric focus as opposed to an asset-centric. And so a lot of my work, there probably isn't a ton of real estate tech positions around, but my role in particular is really focusing on technology across not just real estate, but technology across all different sectors, and understanding how we can use technology to better focus on the customer and understanding their needs and how that translates to spatial needs, translates to services that they could benefit from, and breaking down some of the barriers between I think a traditional landlord and customer issues that have arisen in the past. So a lot of my focus is on leading indicators as opposed to lagging indicators. So really focusing on market intelligence and how to develop new ways of integrating data into understanding where people are moving and where they're going. So housing absorption, VC funding, where it's going, understanding where graduates are going after they graduate from school in different sectors, and then mapping that out. Also looking at working on how do we understand, I think you'll see a lot of companies, their services, they're beginning to farm out a lot of shared services like IT and HR and their real estate services. So how do you talk to customers who don't have a real estate department anymore and in terms of space and what they need? So really looking at natural language processing, and so how do you give them a survey that's not about square footage needs, but about their actual, who are they going to hire in the future, where do they see growth, and then addressing that. And I think you'll see that in, with our new brand, is really focusing on that flex market and making sure that people are not locking themselves into space they don't need over time, and that they're able to shed space and take up space effectively. And so technology needs to support that as well. So we're also looking at a lot of how do you begin to assess spatial needs, both physical spatial needs, but also understanding who are you working with physically, but also who are you working with digitally, who are you emailing the most, and how do you cut down some of that digital clutter to focus on being next to, in a space, the people that you work with the most. And then making sure that the customers understand that we can provide them those insights so they don't go somewhere else.
Okay, good.
Double mic'd.
Great. Is double mic'd? Okay, just kidding. All right. Hi there. So I'm Josh Raffaelli with Brookfield Ventures. Brookfield, for those that aren't aware, $285 billion asset management firm, three primary strategies. So real estate, power, and infrastructure. The preponderance of our capital is being spent in real estate, and obviously there's some very large acquisitions that we've been making focused around the live and play thesis. The Brookfield Ventures organization is really focused on finding technologies that are relevant to the Brookfield ecosystem and helping those companies grow and scale. So we're a balance sheet initiative. I would say that our focus and the things that we're looking at don't really fall into one of those buckets of, again, real estate, power, and infrastructure, but trying to find ways across all three. So we'll get more, I think, into some of the different specific trends we're looking at and the companies we want as we move into this panel.
Yep, okay. For sure. Is this working now? I think we got it going. Okay, question, because I know a lot of the vendors out here, and I get a lot of people always reaching out to me with new technologies. We're talking today about how you guys are adopting, but are you buying these companies? Are you merging with them? Are you using their product on a subscription basis? Is there any specific trend that you guys are seeing on that? To the panel.
I can start it off. I mean, we're not currently buying anything on the tech side, but we're certainly utilizing a lot of vendors, and some in this room actually Iotium. Is that how you say Iotium? Iotium? Sorry, I'm the deal guy, not the tech guy. But we actually just formed a partnership with them, and we're rolling out their strategy or their product throughout our portfolio. And I've got some notes because I don't know all the lingo, but essentially what we're doing there, it's like on the operational level, and this is at the building level, and basically it's taking all of our building systems, and it's basically Internet of Things. So it's getting everything to talk to each other, and then we're bundling all that up so remote users, it's all through one channel, and it's firewalled, so it's secure. And security is a big thing right now for us. So that's an example of someone in the room. If all the landlords in the room, you should go talk to these guys. Their product's great, and they're really good to work with. So that's one of the vendors here we're working with.
Anybody else? Any thought?
So we're primarily venture investors. So we're not buying companies. We're trying to partner with companies and be customers of companies. So we have two companies currently in our portfolio. One is a business that focuses, kind of a LinkedIn for contractors, focusing on general contractors and subs. The company's called Building Connected, helps with the process of construction and bid management tools. And our second business, a company called Convene. Convene being a business focusing on amenity space within commercial buildings. Again, we're trying to focus on where are we a customer and partner of a company. We try to help them find a toehold and help expand throughout Brookfield.
Interesting.
I just toured Convene yesterday, actually, down in LA, and I will say it's an incredible product. If you haven't seen it, you should take a look.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we think about adopting tech in a few different ways. I think we start with what's the pain point, what's the use case, and then we decide what's the most appropriate channel to adopt. It's possible that maybe we just become a customer, buy a piece of software, buy a solution, but I think what is more likely the case and what we really focus on is how do we be a strategic partner? So how do we find a technology company that has the expertise we don't, and work closely with them to build a new solution, not just for us, but really for the industry. So a good example of that is a partnership that we have with Airware, a drone analytics company. So we quickly realized that we weren't going to be the best on building our own drones and building our own drone software. No brainer there. So we found Airware, which really has best-in-breed technology on drone analytics to help us automate our property inspection process. We spend about $100 million a year on the inspection, maintenance, and replacement of roofs. It's a highly manual process. It's very dangerous. People fall through skylights more than we'd care to admit. And so by working with Airware, we're able to actually automate a lot of the most dangerous parts of the task, make people's time more efficient when they're up on the roof, and give them more time in front of the desk to actually analyze the data that they're looking at. So the outcome of that partnership was fantastic. We actually improved our safety record quite a bit. We got much better data out of our inspection process. And now we can start to actually do really interesting things with AI and analytics with that data in terms of predictive maintenance and driving better kind of asset outcomes. So I think that's kind of our preferred method of working with companies. We also look at incubating our own ideas when it's going to be a technology that's hugely proprietary. We'll think about how do we build this from the ground up inside. And then, of course, we do some strategic investments alongside our partnerships as well.
Let me just add one last thing. I think we've decided to use the, I would say, the Android approach as opposed to the Apple approach and try to partner instead of build. And we try, we've been trying to basically turn the company more into kind of an agile company, so that we're running scrums within, not just within the technology team, but within the project management team all the way across portfolio. So it's more about kind of quick wins, trying to determine if a technology is useful by running pilots and MVPs, so that we can kind of get to what is a quick, ROI is a tough thing with technology, especially in real estate. I think anything that has an ROI is probably not pushing it as far as it could be pushed. So we try to get to a point where, if something doesn't seem like it has an ROI, that we get to a point where we can begin to discern how it's going to help, even if it doesn't have a hard number associated with it, quickly, so that we can kind of move in. And my role also is I work with Blackstone, who is, we're the office operating wing of Blackstone, but I work with Blackstone in evaluating all the technologies for them for either investment or acquisition. So like VTS or any other technologies that we've invested in the past. So there's a lot of, they come to us, they say we've evaluated these technologies, I run the pilots or MVPs, and we report back to Blackstone, and then we kind of talk about whether we want to make an investment in the company.
While you have the mic, you
Yes.
mentioned a little bit about earlier predictive analytics, where you want to buy. Wouldn't it be great if there was software out there that would show you where you wanted to be? Or is there something that we don't know about? Or how do you go about doing that?
For new technologies?
Yeah.
It's really, I think for us, it's making sure that the technology is relatable to the users, and so that's all the people in our company who we define as the user groups. So, For instance, the market, one of the things we're developing is a market intelligence dashboard, which is layering on all sorts of disparate data sets like housing absorption, housing prices, percentage increases in housing, MZ data, which is all job growth and sector and industry growth. So understanding where different, who's hiring UI, UX engineers in the Bay Area. Dropping pins and saying that, if I drop a pin in this block, I know everybody in this block, I know where they live and where they work. And I can begin to understand how all that is kind of aggregating around migration within cities. The biggest part of that is actually getting insights from something like that so that we can say, okay, San Francisco, if we're going to make an acquisition on Market Street, what are the insights that this tool can tell us? Because a lot of times I think we layer on data and we want to show all this data, but if it doesn't speak to us and provide us actual insights that we can act on, then it's not really useful. So I think the biggest challenge that we have is making sure that everybody can collect as much data as is available, but really trying to slice and dice it and really make it mean something to people who are maybe not tech savvy, I think is the biggest challenge that technology in real estate has.
Agreed.
I don't know if I answered that question at all.
Yeah, John Kilroy obviously seems to know where to buy real estate. Is there something that we don't know about in terms of how he figures it out? I mean, what's the software behind that?
There's not a lot of software behind that one.
Come on, man, you got to make something up here.
Make something up? Well, I will say this. Not answering that question directly, but we are looking at using geofencing. We're actually working with JLL on the retail aspect of the Flower Mart, and for all of our experiential retail, and we're going to geofence that site and really start to understand with the product. I think it's called Pinpoint, and that'll actually help us track data on our users and where people are coming from, so we can actually start to aggregate that and get some real demographics around who our customers are, who our tenants are, and hopefully that will influence our retail decisions as well.
So we're actively using technologies to focus on both the acquisition and disposition of properties. So this is the combination of a lot of trends in big data, utilizing a variety of database and services that can potentially create insight on, again, when is a buying signal and when is a selling signal. Ultimately, this could potentially disrupt a lot of our organization. We're very aware of it. We're trying a couple different products. One company called Skyline is a business out of Israel that we like a lot, and we're looking at others as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think adding to that, our group's trying to think a little bit creatively about what types of additional data sets can we layer in on tops of the data that we've had, sitting in silos for a long time, to really drive that even more intelligent decision on when and where to buy. And just a quick example of an area I've been looking at is labor quality and availability. So in the industrial space, the availability of labor is one of the biggest challenges of any industrial user right now. In this environment of ultra low unemployment, it's just really impossible to get high quality people into your facility and to retain them for a long time. So we're looking at how can we get those kind of early indicators of where that labor is and where they're moving, and lay that over the data sets we have on our property to understand where the valuable real estate in the industrial sector is going to be in the future.
Thank you for that. And Josh, this one might be more directed to you. There's so much technology out there, right? And different stages of valuation, et cetera. How do you cipher, how do you filter all this when it comes at you?
So in the reality of we're a 6-month-old organization within Brookfield Ventures, so there's some expediency to what we do, which is we're primarily targeting Series Bs. We're primarily companies that are focused past product market fit, and companies that are relevant to Brookfield. So we are leveraging the 88,000 employees that we have to help us with the filters to bring those things to the investment team that we have in Menlo Park. So I'd say that we have a natural funnel that's bringing opportunities to bear. The second check is again, how can we help impact and grow this business? So I'm laser focused on figuring out opportunities where there's a win-win between an investment opportunity with us at Brookfield and a partnership opportunity with us on the commercial side across any of our assets or operating businesses. So again, that's another area of filter. And then I'd say that what's nice about focusing on Series B and beyond is there are thematic cohorts that really help create classes of great businesses. And in partnering with the right venture capital firms, which generally precede us at the Series A, it helps another way of trying to categorize and have our focus be more tailored to the opportunity set. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I'm going to steal a question from somebody that asked it in the audience because it's one that I always think about. What technology does keep you up at night, and more of in the context of a threat? Is there something that you say, I'm very concerned if, not to say that co-working is a threat to you guys because they're in your buildings, but is there any type of technology that you think that's something I'm worried about?
Well, I got an interesting one. So there's a business that we've looked at a couple times. It's a company called Zoom. And what they're doing is it's the disaggregation of retail. So the idea would be, what this company does, its first expression is about restaurants and about food preparation. And all their patents are really about taking the commissary and making it mobile. So what that does is you're disaggregating the brick and mortar and the delivery of food, and you're kind of bringing to bear a mobile kitchen. That's exciting and very disruptive and threatening, because if we're getting rid of our tenants by having a mobile footprint and focusing on next generation delivery services and making that margins disappearing to real estate owners and moving more either towards the customer or potentially towards the owner and brand, that is a disruptive effect. And that's just one example. We're trying to find ways of leveraging companies like that, maybe through mixed commissaries, shared commissaries. That's just one disruptive element we're looking at today.
Well, I mean, the commissary itself, the food, I mean, I wish I was given a piece of candy when I first started in this business in my office, but today we get 3 square meals. That's interesting. Ryan, you mentioned helping tenants understand what they want to be. So are you taking this one step further? Again, that's kind of a brokerage model for us, but on the ownership side, I find that interesting.
I mean, the customer experience side, there's a few things that we think are interesting, and I guess this relates to the earlier question of what keeps me up at night. It's, I haven't been super happy with building apps or office apps. I feel like they're just, no offense to anybody that we're working with out there, but they're just kind of one size fits all relative to I think the kind of way that they're working. And so, we took a pivot early on to think about how language and like Alexa and Siri and all these things can really, because I mean, to me that is the future, is this kind of language processing, and how do you build that into a building? And right now we're kind of at this point where you have chatbots, you have where they can kind of whatever you're typing, they can begin to kind of get to the root of what you mean. Is there a way to do that in a building so that one of the things that I have a problem with apps is that it's kind of, if you're, no matter what you do in a building, the interface is always the same. So if you really just want to use the gym, you still have to go into the app and you're bombarded with all these different icons and you just want to use the gym. Yep. So, if you're using a chatbot or if you're using some kind of language processing, it learns from how you talk to it. Does it start to go into the gym app? Does it learn what you like to do? Does it tell you that the class that you took last week is again happening and it's filling up, and do you want me to sign you up for this class? And we're starting to build that out at Willis Tower and really have it be customized to whatever that person wants to do and have it learn from how they like to use the building and not just bombard them with kind of an interface, right? Really learn from what they like to do. That kind of keeps me up at night.
But I think that's coming. I think the predictive analytics, everybody understands, Matt Griffin, he likes to stay out late at night, so he comes in at 9 o'clock. So we know his parking space, he's going to be over here, so they can, those types of analytics are coming for sure. Yeah. And I think that's what we're seeing, a lot of the Internet of Things and the whole.
Yeah, the
AI.
biggest challenge we have is just legacy technology that's in buildings is so hard to interface with. Without ripping everything out, how do you make all those integrations work and have kind of an open API? If you're building something from scratch every time, it's great. But if you're coming into Willis Tower which is older than dirt, and you're trying to like figure out how to integrate new technology in there. There's a lot of headaches. You have to kind of figure out how to get the stuff in, and that keeps me up a lot.
We can't have a CREtech conference without talking about robotics. I would assume that in the industrial world of Prologis, you've got to have robotics. Is the world, is your labor going down and the robotics are taking over? Where are you in there?
Yeah, we're in an interesting spot, probably at the beginning of a really interesting, I think, inflection point in the adoption of robotics. What's pretty fascinating is if you actually look across the global supply chain today, somewhere about 5% of the supply chain is truly fully automated. About 15% or so is semi-automated, and the rest, about 80%, is pretty much entirely manual. So there is a lot of low-hanging fruit, and much of the supply chain is completely unautomated. And there's some really amazing advancements in machine learning, in AI, and computer vision that are driving kind of a next generation of not just autonomous guided vehicles within an industrial space, but also autonomous picking arms, autonomous shuttle systems. And you can see the early signs of a bunch of kind of venture capital and a bunch of investment kind of flowing into the space. And a lot of big players like the DHLs, the UPSs, the Walmarts of the world are really starting to adopt these technologies in a serious way. So it's coming. I think it's coming pretty soon. And what we look at is what's that implication on the real estate. I think there's going to be huge implications, whether it's the form factor, the functionality of the building itself. There's going to be some really interesting changes. Thinking about what happens, what's the connectivity need of the future when you're adopting robotics that needs super low latency and super high bandwidth. It's going to drive a lot of disruption in connectivity. What are the power requirements? The building requirements are going to look very different, but also, what's the location needs? All of a sudden, when you're not paying for labor, that equation of how do I get close to big pools of low-cost labor changes, and you actually want to be close to pools of a different type of labor, not just the blue collar, but also the folks that can actually work on those machines and more the engineering mindset. So it's going to have some really interesting ripple effects as you start to see automation proliferate through the supply chain. So. Lots of exciting things, I think, in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yep. This question, last question for me, we'll open up to the audience, more focused on the office user. Matt, we were talking earlier about event space. The things we need to do as landlords to take care of our customers, our tenants. What kind of technology do you see directly related to the tenants? I mean, obviously we've come from, everybody used to have a website. Well, we all have a website now,
yeah.
But.
Well, let me take it from the perspective, our prospective tenant base, because that's a big thing. We're developers, so a lot of what we're doing is selling buildings that don't exist. So, having a PowerPoint presentation on a building you're going to build in 2024 really doesn't cut it. So we're about to open up an incredible marketing center for the Flower Mart, and we're building a 35-foot wide wall that's 17 feet tall. It's curved, and it's all going to be augmented reality. What's crazy is the wall isn't even here yet. It's on a boat coming over. So we're using VR to work on our AR in Steel Blue's office. So it's crazy just to think about it from that perspective. But what we really think is if you don't have that immersive experience for your prospective tenant base and really take the opportunity for that one chance to make that impression with the CEO or one of the FAANG companies or whoever you're dealing with, yep. You can really blow that opportunity. So we invest heavily in tech when it comes to the marketing side.
Agreed.